Great, so I think we're about ready to get started with show and tell, which we have for the next hour-ish. If your project hasn't already added yourselves to the show and tell Etherpad, please do so. It's linked in both the program and the day's Etherpad. We do have a break, after the show and tell we'll wrap up, and there'll be a break before we all go from here to dinner. We can get into more details about that, but tonight actually dinner is not going to be in the hotel. We're going to be going somewhere, and all the information for that is in the day's Etherpad. And again, we'll talk about this more later. But I think we're just about ready to get started with these talks. So I'm going to time them to be pretty short to make sure that everybody has a chance to present. Because everything is so handily linked here, you're welcome to use my computer if you want to open up the links that you have for your project. Okay, if I can make my mouse appear. Sorry, what? Cannot hear. Okay. So up first we have Aaron and ref extraction. I'm just going to go in order that they were entered. Please don't be too shy and cut and paste yourself further down the list.
If you say something with the notes, if you would want to add.
Oh yes, and you'll know if you entered the notes in here that we have a blank space, so feel free to take notes on what people are talking about. So do you want to plug in?
Yeah, actually, why don't I'm just going to put this in a place where I don't have to put it right quick. And I'll just paste the link.
Some impressive standing.
Yeah. Yeah, I have experience. So, where's our Etherpad? Right there. Wonderful. Okay. All right. So, hi, I'm Aaron Halfaker. I was working with several people on the reference extraction project. And so essentially what we were working on doing was building a strategy for extracting references from MediaWiki installations like Wikipedia, historically, effectively, and with a structure that we can use to do all sorts of really interesting things with understanding how references are used. So I'm going to have to crane my neck a little bit to get you the links that I want to show you. And here we go. Okay, whoops. What? No.
Oh, there's a pen. Etherpad, you jerk.
How do you get to the address bar?
The tiny one.
Check the cats folder.
No. It's so for future presenters, it's going to stick a paren at the end if you follow the template exactly. You don't want that paren at the end because then you'll get stuck like me. Okay, so there was this research project that was discussed a little bit earlier. Maybe I can control minus, open Apple, command minus. There we go, yeah. So anyway, it was about understanding the context of citations in Wikipedia. Scrolling, oh yeah, it goes the other way. Mac, closed source software. But anyway, like one thing that we gestured at very briefly was this idea that we would have a schema for how citations were structured. So, in our project, we did a ton of work to figure out how citations should actually be structured by actually generating them, or generating this structured content against like real content in articles. And so this is linked off of the page, actually, if you go check the page that I have linked to in the Etherpad here. But I just want to show you that we went to a few pages that we thought would be interesting to extract citations for, and we did a lot of clicking around and getting our stuff together and figuring out what these things should actually look like. We added some fields, we moved a few things around, we figured out what would actually make sense and then went working towards implementing that. Okay, so one more thing that I want to show you. Oh, actually, before I get into this, I have to go back to the talk page here. So one of the problems that we have with references is they don't just float around by themselves. They actually are associated with content, like content that they're supporting or refuting or something like that. And we needed to figure out how much content to grab along with the reference. And so Besnick did an analysis with a past data set that he had, and he figured out how much content we would have to grab before the reference in order to make sure that we were grabbing enough content to actually account for the reference. And so essentially what we came up with was
400 characters is probably good enough.
and at least we can start playing around with that and get the rest out of post hoc analysis. So, okay. So next thing is we set up a schema. So when we actually produce these JSON blobs, we can validate them against the schema and make sure that they're actually good. Other people can know what our format looks like. This is something that we can hand off to James Hare, and he can start looking at as he thinks about how you might start pulling these things into the library-based system. Okay, and finally, the last thing that I was pasting into the Etherpad is that we put together this utility. This is actually a Python utility. You can install this from the Python repositories. You would do pip install mwrefs. And then you get this cool command line utility, and I didn't want to plug in my computer so I could show you that it would actually run, but you give this, call this fetch references thing, tell it which encyclopedia you're going to connect to, and a revision ID which represents a version of the article that you want to process, and you'll get output that looks like this guy right here, which is a big pile of references. By the way, this is the most recent edit to the article anachronism, and so you can already play with our output format, maybe do some analysis on it. And that's it.
Thank you so much. No worries. I'm just gonna tab out all this. And bookmark, how about bookmark bar gone while we're at it? Okay. Next up we have Python Open Science API Toolkit. Did you want to use your own computer?
That's same actually. I'm next.
Oh.
After that. Yeah.
Hold on. Do you want to use my computer?
Okay. Hey. So one of my big passions in the last half a year is to access APIs. I really think of this age of interfaces where you connect all kinds of endpoints to each other, and you get an ecosystem out of it. So when I heard one of the first talks about oadoi.org, I thought I want to write a Python wrapper to access the data there. Then I thought I want to use the Wikidata Integrator API to access Wikidata for it, and everything with Python. So my main idea was there are existing modules, sometimes there are not existing modules, but I want to offer a framing around like that you can import lists of DOIs with a CSV file, for example, and that you can store in your own data format the output from the API. Sometimes you have XML, sometimes you have JSON, but I want to offer the framing around. So I started then to write some stuff, and I started with oadoi. And how does it make smaller? All right. So I started with oadoi, which was not very difficult. Then I found some functions I wanted to use more often. Then I used Wikidata Integrator, but then I thought when I'm on it, it took me then half an hour to write more ones. I then wrote one for ORCID, one for Zotero, and one for Digital Open Access Journal. That's it so far. The idea is to write even more and to make the functionalities even better. It's not very much tough Python stuff. I'm not a pro developer, but I think it's a good starting point. I would have been very happy 2-3 years ago if someone offers me just a query function and not the whole request, write, input, output stuff. So yeah, the future is to have even more to have more access to other APIs, to write even better input-output functionalities. I want to write it in a PostgreSQL and SQLite free database to make it even faster and more easier to write more data inside. And with all this stuff at the end, I found out there is no existing PyOpenSci project to use like this approach of our OpenSci for Python. So I created an organization on GitHub and already registered the domain, so, pyopensci.org. So I think we'll try now to gather people around open science scripts for Python and to offer a compositor a place for this. So you're heartily welcome to add your stuff and also improve the toolkit. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
This live note taking behind people's heads pretty wild. Right. The warning about bad sources and sites.
Yeah, that's me.
You want to plug in?
Please, yeah.
Sorry.
We're in different sites. Go ahead. Oh, that's working. Cool. Can I maximize it? Can I do things to this? Yes, I can, as it turns out. So yeah, hi. So I'm Guilherme. I was pursuing this idea of maybe having Cytoid or the visual editor in general, I guess, warn you when you're about to use a source that we know to be bad as a reference on Wikipedia. And kind of the proof of concept that we chose was Wikipedia itself. And so I sat next to James, and he gave me a ton of guidance, and I did some typing to make this kind of happen. So this is hopefully a successful live demo. So this is my local MediaWiki running. Please.
Clicking the surface first.
No, it's I've just refreshed and it's taking forever.
Well, check the console.
Yeah, don't refresh your live demos in the future. But well, if you go to the Etherpad, there will be a GIF of this demo that I was about to give you, and I might wait a couple of seconds longer just to see if it might happen. But basically, this is out for review. It's obviously very hackish, and obviously I'll continue to pursue this. But the idea is if you try to add a reference to Wikipedia itself through Cytoid, it'll give you a little warning, like, hey, you maybe you're not supposed to do this. And of course, the future plan for this is not only to capture Wikipedia itself, but to have some sort of whitelist or blacklist or whatever of community banned sources that you're not supposed to use. So let's try this for 1 second.
There we go.
So I'm trying to add a source. And there we go. And it gives you a little warning that you're not supposed to be doing that in the general case. So yeah, again, in the Etherpad you'll find links to the Fabricator entry for the hack that I have out for review, and for a little GIF of this demo if you're so amazed that you want to watch it over and over again. Thank you.
Up next is a hand cart. Did you want to use my computer, or do you?
You just put the Etherpad up or something.
Yeah.
Sure. So, man, that went by fast. It was a fast day. Okay. So, basically, one of the advantages of doing a command line tool is that you don't need to do a browser demo. And in our case, you don't need to do a demo at all. So, what Handcart is, newly named, is basically a tool that goes sort of hand in hand with people who want to donate small, medium-sized data sets to Wikidata. And it sort of fits in among quick statements and this sort of thing. And what it evolved into is basically almost like an interactive interview. So when we were doing our data donor session, people were asking, like, how do I get time with somebody who actually knows Wikidata so that I can model and import my data into Wikidata? How do I know that I'm doing it right? So we've conceived a series of questions that will iteratively go through a CSV with you and kind of take this flat data and graphify it in a way that actually makes sense in the current Wikidata ecosystem. So basically, the first question it asks is, in a given row, what main model, what main entity is being modeled, right? So in our case, we were going to do some case law stuff, but we decided to go with some taxa, which were a little bit less ambiguous. And we basically said, okay, well, there's the taxa, but there's also the source when that taxa was first defined. So at the very least, within a given record, you have both a species and a document which first described that species. So separating those two things out and splitting it into, in that case, 2 CSVs to have like one for each kind of item that you want to add ended up being like our major insight and defining like a really simple process for doing that. We also found that Python, despite having its many, many merits, doesn't have a really great library for just doing those kinds of interactive text-based interviews. Almost like a text adventure game or something like that, but for Wikidata. So we're building that now, and it's going pretty swimmingly. So go to github.com/hatnote/handcart, and you can star and watch and follow along, and contribute maybe too. Thank you.
Up next is Zika.
Thank you. So this is the first in a series of Zika-related sessions. Our session was itself composed of 2 different themes. The first one was trying to figure out what are the requirements for building this visualization that, like we said, could basically showcase what the value proposition of Wikicite is, basically connecting sources and statements in a way that would be engaging to the general public. So what we did as part of this process is, we created a wiki project that is now up on Wikidata. And we started discussing a lot of questions around who the target audience is, who we want to build it for, and use that to orient the kind of questions and the kind of design we will be using. And after quite some discussion about the possible usage of this, we talked about the sociologists of science, journalists, the general public. We narrowed this down to an idea of representing the provenance of all scientific knowledge on Zika. So the output of visualization would be some kind of visual storytelling that will allow us to say where does all this knowledge come from? Where are the funders, the institutions, the geographic location of authors, and allow people to manipulate these objects. That's the beginning of work on this. We also listed all the missing data sets we'll need, to be able to get there. And we did some research on where to find this data. Missing author affiliations, coverage of statements that are supported by these sources. Funder information is super important, so we have some ideas that we're exploring on how to find this data. Adding paper topics, we started looking into adding mesh items as topics to represent what each paper is about, and ways of defining the boundaries of this graph, because if we crawl the entire graph, we end up having the entire Wikidata into this corpus. So that was the first part, and please join the Wiki project if you're interested in participating. And I want to pass it on to Giorgio to talk about the design part.
Yeah? No. So when we were thinking about the audience and the type of and the type of output that you can have, visual output that you can have, we were thinking on one side that we can have a narrative with an interactive visualization that explore the different aspect of the data sets, or at the same time we can build something that is a bit more complete, maybe, that gives a multiple views on the corpus. So what we were thinking is to build something that is more like an old style thematic atlas with all possible visualizations that can be built through Wikidata queries on the corpus of Zika. And the idea is to build something that then
can be visualized by the user, but at the same time the user can go back to the query, can go back to the visualization and edit it themselves. This is like first sketch of what could be the pipeline of the project. And okay. So when we were thinking about this, we also joined forces with the group that work in the morning on the integration of raw graphs and Wikidata query. And we were thinking that part of this, this being the first hack, it was to integrate this feature in the query to export directly the query into raw graphs and then create the visualization with the data set that exported. So this was a little experiment.
Is that?
So the other thing we want to use the Zika corpus for is teaching Sparkle queries. A few of us talked about that this morning and have an outline. It would be great to get comments from people, and if you are interested in helping develop it or you have ideas of where to present this stuff, please let me know. Follow the link and take a look.
Initial rough work in progress. Do you need to plug in?
Yes.
Cool. So I was trying to make running a Wikidata query service, Wikibase, and just everything really easy, and I kind of probably got just over halfway, but not quite 2/3 of the way. And so there's this lovely Git repo which has a bunch of stuff in it. If you check it out and you have Docker installed, and you type docker compose up, then this page, which didn't load before, will slowly start loading, and you'll have the query service UI. And now this will fail until the query service actually appears. Unless it breaks. It's getting there. Okay. And you can see I have 0 triples. Yeah, so I look forward to continuing this and hopefully actually then being able to have a Wikibase instance and it all updating, but yeah, it's not quite there yet.
I can go just with the links. I can go with the links.
Are you sure? Citation.
Hi all, I'm Henrique, and I just discovered this tool called Citation Hunt here in the Wikicite, so I decided to work with Surly Cyborg. Have you seen? He's there. He's the maintainer of the tool. And for the ones that don't know the tool, it's this one here that goes through the wikis, finding pages that are marked with citation needed, and it shows here. It's better. And it shows here a page with a citation needed tag. You can search it with categories. You can go like biology, for example, and it will show you articles, history of evolutionary biology, and it may show you a new article with that category. So what I did was to configure this tool to run also in the Portuguese Wikipedia. That was in my personal interest. And inspired by Okazi, where is he? Where is Jake? Not here. Okay. Jake? No? Okay. So he inspired us, and we created this page on Meta with instructions about how we did it. And so people from other language that want to do the same thing and customize the tool to run in another language may follow this simple step-by-step here, or just talk with us. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
'78 RPM records.
Are you guys gonna? Do you guys want to talk about the citation that you've been doing?
Well, go ahead first.
All right. All right. They don't want to talk, so I'm going to talk about fervor. Where can I get the Etherpad?
The main one or the?
I just want to click on those links right
Yeah,
there.
you can click on.
All right. I don't.
Oh, sorry. It's if you have to look behind you while I do it because it's not mirrored.
Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Quickly. Okay. So they're talking about there's a bunch of 78 RPMs in the Internet Archive that they're
What are they?
Old records. No time. I'm on a time limit. I can't explain. There's part of a Wikipedia article on it. So we were figuring out what we do to cite these things, and that's what they were working on, and they might talk to you about it later. And what I was interested in, what do we do to get these in Wikidata, and what are the problems? And I ran into a whole set of Ferber problems because on Wikipedia itself, a lot of these. How do I go back? You'll see a lot of most songs are represented on the aggregate level. You have an article on the work level about every single expression, every single cover of that song that are all stuffed into one single article. The problem is when they get over to Wikidata, you have an item about a single expression, even if there's a cover version that is more famous than the original expression, there's no single item for that. So you have Respect represented in Wikidata as an Otis Redding song, Along the Watchtower as a Dylan song instead of by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Hurt, Johnny Cash is not there. They're all represented as single expressions, and all the other expressions are not represented at all. So you have issues where you have an item for an expression that is actually representing the article for the work and linked to the article for the work and not the expression. So with these individual 78s, you have a bunch of manifestations that we want to put in Wikidata. And so there's a whole bunch of issues there. Also, we're going to need new properties, which I'm going to be proposing next week for things like matrix number and label number. And so we're going to maybe in the future, hopefully work with IA to get some of that data in the Wikidata. And so screw with the whole Ferber conceptuality mess entirely. And I don't know, maybe we need to think about these issues long term because we're talking about we're putting individual journal articles, individual books in the Wikidata, but we have individual songs are not represented in the same way that we represent these items. So we should think about that. And also we cited some of them really well with one of the templates.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. I'll explain really quickly. Wow, this is confusing. All right. Here? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't put it. Oh, I guess you can link to it. Yeah.
I'm just going to talk real quick. It's just the second half of our, I think. Okay, just the continuation, what Rob said about our 78 RPM records. If you didn't know, 78 RPM is a record that has music on it. You can tell, I'm a journalist, so I have to explain these things. Okay, what is the properly formatted citation? How can it be created by hand? We want to find out what was the status of generating this in 78s. We found 3 different ways of doing it with a basic Internet Archive template. We took a lot of time to figure out how to model this with the site AV Media, and then this is what is scraped right now by Zotero. And if you look at these 3 different outputs, we think we're well set up now to work with IA to get the right info from them. We want something like this that shows that these are the digital formats available, 78 RPM record, that it's findable in the Internet Archive, and hopefully we can get that done after this.
Still these quotes instead of italics. Sorry, librarian complaint.
Okay, that's it.
That's pretty concise. Nice of them.
Oh, no, go for it.
Yeah. Does it have HDMI enough anyway?
Is that? The,
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, it's not that bit. So.
I'm not sure.
Oh, that's fine. Can we plug yours back again?
Sure.
Imagine it's buried somewhere.
I thought we had another one before. But... Why don't I try mirroring for fun?
Are you looking for HDMI?
Yeah.
Don't you just pull the adapter up?
No, that's VGA.
Oh.
It's VGA on the cable.
There's also a button if you change the type of cord, you can press the button in the box.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, we've gone back to the original.
Ugh.
It's probably buried under here actually for the next person.
Okay. This just looks so awful.
Okay.
Cool. Hi. Yeah, so during the hackathon before this hackathon, I worked on a tool called Fatima, and I think it's probably worth presenting a little bit of it now. I didn't make huge amounts of progress during today, but basically it's a tool that's very similar to the tool that was written for, I think, Protein Box Bot, which is called the PMID tool. And basically it's an API endpoint that you can hit, and when you hit it, it will make an item if you have already logged in with OAuth, and it will make that item under your username. And the back end of it uses this thing called the Wikidata integrator, and they've made some nice helper scripts, so it actually does everything correctly. You don't end up accidentally making duplicate items for... also, when I say items, I mean items about journal articles that are in PubMed. And yeah, it does a nice thing, so you don't end up with duplicate items, and it correctly adds references, and if the authors have ORCIDs, then it makes an item for the author and adds the ORCID and correctly references it all. And yeah, basically all you have to do is log in, and you have to log in with OAuth, which I'm not going to do because then I'm going to edit under your username, which you probably don't really want. And then, yeah, you go back, and in here you just whack in a PMID, and it will make your item. There's like no questions asked, it just makes it. Yeah, there's no are you sure? So the idea for this for us was we wanted to basically improve upon the current workflow a lot of people are using, which is the SourceMD tool, which, in case you don't know, generates this big load of quick statements, and then you have to paste these in and then go through them slowly, which is, yeah, kind of inefficient and not really usable at scale. So I like to think this is kind of a hybrid between importing all of the things from PubMed and just importing the ones you want, but with like minimal friction. So yeah, thank you very much.
Hey, matching Crossref with Wikidata. Do you guys want to use your computer?
No.
Oh, okay.
Hi there. This was one of the first outings for Event Data, so it's kind of cool to see people using it. And the idea was, how can we combine Event Data with other stuff, or what can we get from Event Data to kind of to help enrich Wikidata? So, do you want to talk about what you did?
So it was fun. Firstly, today I really enjoyed it. I got to use the Crossref event dataset, and what I did is I parsed in my SQL. I wrote a script in PHP, and the challenge was to find out what kind of attributes I would like to filter and use it, and then I kind of like use SQL queries to find out different kind of hypotheses. And what I selected is all the DOIs that are mentioned, or the popularity of the DOIs based on Wikipedia references. And this initiated the idea of doing future studies, because my focus of research is in altmetrics, and I would like to use the Crossref event data and Wikipedia mentions and compare with altmetric information for journal level or article level DOIs. Yeah, thank you.
There was also quite a good diversity of technology. There was MySQL, PHP, Ruby at some point, MongoDB, Pandas and Python. So the other thing we were doing was looking at DOIs that we find in Wikipedia that are missing from Wikidata. So, so we took all the Wikipedia pages which have references to DOIs, and we found all those unique pairs, and then we wrote a Sparkle query to find all the items in Wikidata which are publications and which have DOIs. And then in Python, we subtracted one set from the other to find those DOIs that are mentioned in Wikipedia and which do not have entries in Wikidata, and then we sorted those by their popularity. And there was one which was cited in possibly every web page on Wikipedia, and then some other quite useful stuff. So it's all preliminary, and but yeah. So this guy, number one, Hess, that's cited everywhere. But the other ones, I think these are going to be quite good candidates. One's a retraction, which is interesting. And so future stuff, this could be used to recommend good candidates for Wikidata items, which could then be backported into references from Wikipedia to, you know, enrich the connectedness of the universe. Thanks.
Okay, so tarot translators. Do you want to
Actually, the first one I just checked, it is in Wikidata, so...
He's cheating. He just created the item.
Now you can check the number, 21
With
million,
Fata
so
minutes.
it's a year ago or something. Created in 2015.
Okay, so Tarot translators, we were a few of us kind of concentrating really on the Zotero part. So we looked at the newspaper translators. We started there to analyze kind of what is actually going on, and we fixed some of the problems. Started kind of to fix some of them. You see here the pull request kind of for the Zotero translators thing. One of us did a schema.org translator, starting with that. So JSON LD in schema.org would then be possible. That is really amazing. There was also work on this JLE, Finnish Broadcasting Company, a new translator. So this is all the magic kind of for Cytoid, which is then just working at some point. There is some more things needed. And then the last thing maybe which I want to present also is a prototype for the quick statement. So here we have this quick statement. You see also here that's kind of the Zotero part. So I have just now this translator added here. So I can now click and drop the thing here. Oh. And it will make some properties. And actually, that's even possible to do more than one.
Nice.
Okay, experimenting with shape expressions.
Woo. What for this?
Sorry. Oh, okay. Where's the screen? There's the screen. Okay, so Andana Wachmeister and Catherine Thornton and I, we played a bit with these shape expressions, which you can use to express constraints. On Wikidata entities. And here on the left, oh, it's zoomed in now. There's a sample shape which describes that a book should have a title and it should also mandatory have a subtitle, which is clearly not correct. And here on the right is a bunch of data imported from Wikidata, which is the item for Don Quixote, the book. And if we validate the constraints, we should see after a while some errors. For example, that there is a missing property, which is prof was derived from, which means that there's a statement which is missing a reference. And there's also some other errors which we didn't yet understand, but we'll basically continue to work on this, and I'll see if I can integrate this into my day work, which is the constraints extension on Wikidata. That's it.
Okay, personalized open knowledge maps. Do you want to use my computer?
So today's hackathon was a great example for failing fast, but pivoting faster. So I'll just leave out all the failures and go to the end result. Where is it? Here. So, as you know, open knowledge maps. Okay, I'll just leave it this way. Uses PubMed or Base as a data source, but I really wanted to, for a long time, implement BibTeX uploads. So any researcher could basically just upload their own recommended readings or even the references of the thesis. And what you see here is a part of my own Mendeley library. So I feel a bit exposed here. This is quite intimate and personal. But it was nice to see that there was some cognitive science classes here and knowledge domain visualizations, critical neuroscience, and most importantly, I realized my main interest is in cluster labeling, curriculum design, and Dutch elderly. So it's work in progress. But I hope that if anybody has some ideas, because I feel big when I realized I didn't attend that tutorial in Sparkle, which I should have probably done. So if anybody has ideas how to use this kind of approach for maybe including Wikidata or BibTeX files, anybody has a R BibTeX parser, please tell me, because the ones that are out on the internet are horrible. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Jupyter Notebook Validator.
Yeah, so we wanted to get an overview on how best to approach the topic of referencing Jupyter notebooks, and we did that in two main steps. One was looking at how Jupyter notebooks are actually used already on Wikipedia, so we looked into some of them, and then we found, well, altogether the usage is still limited, and so that corpus of Jupyter notebooks published with the scholarly literature is a better corpus to actually test how well you can, or how easily you can rerun such Jupyter notebooks. And then we looked into how we can automate the testing so that we can only link Jupyter notebooks that have actually been validated as still running, not just on the original machine.
Yeah, so this is a Jupyter notebook to test Jupyter notebooks, and you have a lot of code to, and what the in practice can do is to take a file name of a notebook and run it, so like in this case, or take a URL and run it, and returning the exception if there is an error, and the code who raised the exceptions. This is long code, and it's also taking the list of notebooks that are on this spreadsheet listing notebooks used in the literature, and here you have a few tests, a list of tests, which is quite unreadable on those notebooks.
And so the idea is whenever you want to reference a Jupyter notebook on Wikipedia or elsewhere, you can use this validator to see whether it throws any exceptions. And if it does, then you probably shouldn't reference it, but if it does not, then you're good to go. Thanks.
Okay, conference proceeding modeling. Phoebe.
Okay, so Marcel and I spent 6 hours thinking about conference proceedings. We're not done. Will we ever be done? It's a mystery. But check out our model. So, you want to...
Yes. So we tried to discuss proceedings a little bit with an open mind and look at the recent work afterwards and see how this maps to work that has been done previously. And we essentially came up in a brainstorm with 3 kind of key observations about conference proceedings. And the first one is that something that I actually share with journals and other established methods of publication is there's a kind of a 3-layer hierarchy in this process. You have proceeding series, and proceeding series usually publish a number of proceedings volumes, and those volumes carry a number of research articles. So this is a quite natural hierarchy of these 3 items in this process. And this is kind of essentially the same thing we know from journals and volumes and articles there, but also from book series, collections, and chapters in such collections. So this is kind of a thing that makes it similar to recent cases. But second observation that we had is that journals, conferences are kind of discussed as the same thing as their proceedings. And this is maybe a problem, and this maybe should not be done. So we try to make a conceptual split between the published proceedings of a conference and the actual conference as an event. And the events actually have a similar 3-layer hierarchy. You can see on the right side here, like where you have the conference series, which is a series of events that takes place, and this has a number of presentations. And this kind of is a different thing than the proceedings, but of course a related thing to the proceedings. And this is maybe the third observation, is how do the proceedings and the conferences relate to each other. And our observation was that there's, of course, a very strong connection between the proceedings volumes and the conference events. Those are closely related. They're not necessarily related one-to-one, of course, because you can have volumes that carry a number of workshops, a number of conference events in a single volume. You may have a single event that is split over several volumes. But there is this strong connection, and also there's a connection between papers and presentations, but presentations are maybe not so of interest for Wikidata yet. So this is kind of the observations we had, and this was the motivation we had when we tried to adapt a model that fits these observations from practice.
Yeah, so we proposed a property, but I think I'm about to change it based on talking to Dario, so don't vote yet. But we're going to propose some properties about proceedings of, has proceedings, that kind of thing to represent this. The other thing we did is Charles Matthews made this page about Wikidata sources. Okay, now instead of just a journal article nav box, it also has a conference proceeding nav box, and so you can use this handy guide to all the properties we discovered to model your next conference proceeding in Wikidata. Thanks.
You. Just a quick note, the group working on the semantics of constraints, so must, should, may have, they want to look into this proposal here and hack it to improve it. Sorry, I'm just hijacking.
Oh yeah. Do you want to use my computer?
Yeah.
Okay, I've took an approach to make a couple of Sparkle queries to the Wikidata query service, and one of those that I put it up on my blog. And one question I posed was, how many authors are there in Wikidata that have written a scientific article, and where the scientific article is recorded having made one or more citation, and the cited works recorded with one or more author items, and where the genders of both the citing and the cited author are known, and where there are no author name string in neither the work nor the cited work, indicating that the work and the cited work may be completely linked with respect to author name. And there's only 551 of these. Another query I made was to make a co-author graph, yet again the Sparkle query, and then put the data into Giphy, and trying to push some buttons in that program and get this out here. So this is supposed to be some thousands of the authors that are linked in the big connected component of Wikidata.
The authors of the Human Genome paper, probably.
Yeah, there's some Francis Collins, which
a number of others.
He seems to be a big shot, but after looking a bit, I also found a person. This guy here. I've been, yeah. I myself was over here, so I haven't found out what part of this here is. I don't know whether you recognize any of these. It could take a while to generate these 10 minutes or so, but yeah. Okay.
Okay, when I calculated how much time per talk, a bunch of people have added talk since then, so we have at least like 4 or 5 more. So if you try and keep it to 2 or 3 minutes so we can get to everybody.
This is your computer?
No, it's not mine.
Where is your computer? This is your computer.
I was wondering what was going on with that.
I just want to, okay. Sorry, this thing here. How can I? Oh. Can you? Sorry. Okay. Okay. We did this, and I mean, this is a draft of a book data model. It's not really visible, but we tried to divide books in at least 2 levels, where for I mean, giving some complexity, and we try to divide the properties for works and for editions. We try to separate and discriminate the identifiers for edition and works, and we also try to make some order on some of the properties, because right now there is, for example, a properties. This is edition and translation of, and we probably are gonna propose to have 2 properties, one for edition and the other one for the translation. And I mean, this is a draft. We are going to discuss it into details, and then make a proposal for the whole Wikidata community on the Wikibooks project. So I mean, you will probably find this proposal in the next weeks, and we
we welcome your feedback, but we are gonna enforce it anyway. So, but the feedback is welcome. So.
You should talk to the constraints people so that.
No, of course. But we what we are gonna do also is create some models and create some examples of simple books and then more complex Pride and Prejudice, Hamlet, Fin. Kind of complexity examples, and then we will try to take it.
All right, and if you're still giving a talk, if you could come near the front so we can just get through these last few. Now, interlinking open air. But yeah, if you're OABOT, legal framework, pink unicorn, if you could come up towards the front. Do you want to plug in here? There isn't one. Okay.
Oh, there was.
Yeah, I have no idea where it went. There's just this other thing, which I think is basically the same.
Okay, I can use this. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's like, there's not an HDMI, I don't know where it is.
I don't have mine.
Then we should just use that Etherpad, or?
Yeah, but, okay, I had this, wanted to show this, but I know. Yeah, I can.
Well, then we can show it this way here.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I don't know where the HDMI is.
We can just talk.
Okay, so basically what we did here was look at the data models for scholarly articles, organizations, projects, and things like that in OpenAIRE, which is a repository of the scholarly literature in Europe. And we compared that to the data model for those corresponding things in Wikidata, and we tried to match those properties where they existed in both places. And so now this is the basis for integrating those two systems more closely.
Yeah.
And we had to show those mappings, but yeah, computers didn't work.
Yes, thank you.
Always on.
So we've been improving this tool that already existed beforehand. We've done various improvements. Do you mind if I log you in the tool?
Go for it.
Thanks. And so it takes citations on the English Wikipedia, proposes to add open access links to these citations. So we've added a few guidelines to know what to check for, and also we're working on a Wikidata version of the tool, which uses the Wikidata distributed game from Magnus. So we're really excited. We're also planning to add support for non-structured citations with Bilbo, which was presented yesterday. That's about it.
Okay. Legal framework to deal with CC0 data?
So we basically did a hack but had a discussion because we have big issues with using ontologies in Wikidata. So the performance we just saw earlier today was an illegal performance because they were using sites in a Wikidata context, and that is apparently not allowed. So we have been discussing this on how to do it, and well, it has been a discussion starter. The conclusion is if you know someone who has serious issues with moving from CC0 from CC BY to CC0, please point them to the Wikimedia Foundation, and because they want to talk to them on their motivations. And we will start working on a system to record approvals to use the data in a CC0 context. So the discussion started, and that was a bit the outcome. Thank you.
All right, pink unicorn.
I'm still waiting for one.
No pink. Oh, I'm sorry.
Click the PNG.
This is important. It is real. Thank you so much to everybody who presented and hacked on everything and for sharing this all with us. You all did great. Good job hacking today. So this is our final day of Wikicite, and now we are at the point where Dario is going to offer some reflections about
Citation needed. No, I want to invite here the entire organizing committee because it's not my event. It's something that we co-organize. So Daniel, don't be shy. Jonathan, come over. I know. And I mostly wanted to Lydia, yes, and sorry, I always take for granted you're sitting here, Lydia. And I basically want to open this up by asking everyone in the organizing committee to share some thoughts about how this went, what they were expecting, what went in surprising ways, and then open this up to the entire room to hear your thoughts, both as a summary of the day, as well as ideas on something we should be focusing on going forward. So, starting from Jonathan.
Yes.
So in closing, this was way more than I expected over the last 3 days. I've been blown away. Thank you all for coming. Thoughts going forward, we still have a lot of work to do. We're just starting in this path towards how to get all the citations structured and separable. So that's a much longer discussion than we have for the wrap-up right now, but thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for coming. It's been really great, and I'm quite thrilled how far we've come since last year.
Okay, well, some quick thoughts. So initially when we planned this thing as a combination of conference, then kind of strategy and hackathon, we were not really sure whether this would work. And I guess there are not many crowds with which this could work, but I have the impression it actually did work. So thanks for this one. In terms of work, I think one big gap is still the coordination. Like we are a growing community and with possibly even growing enthusiasm, and this is infecting others. And this means we need to really think about coordination. In that session about coordination, I was alone with Jonathan yesterday, and we had a very good time between the two of us, but I think we should infect each other a bit more in terms of this coordination, because when we are all here, it was so pleasant to just walk around, oh, I need someone to help me with this and that, and they are all here. It worked nicely, but when we are back off online, it's not so easy to find that one, especially this pointing like, no, it's not me who knows something, but it's him or her. And here, that's easier. We need to have similar mechanisms when we're all back online.
So Cameron had to leave already for his plane, so he's not here. I won't pretend to know what he's thinking, but I think he had a really great time. Thoughts? Well, yeah, this is really amazing to go from, like Google Doc sheets to all of you guys doing and creating and thinking and speaking. It was really cool how it sort of came alive. All the work that you did really is what made Wikicite, and thank you for that. Other thoughts? I wish we had, well, we do have Post-its now. That's good. Every now and then I found myself worrying about all the sort of random logistics things, and overall it went well, and what didn't go well we sorted out in our Google chat. But yeah, this was really fun, and I've really enjoyed this.
All right, so I want to make like one quick comment about something that I see the need of for next year and the future, and that's better tools for collaborative data modeling. This is the point where the audience shouts and thank you. So many groups and subgroups were busy trying to figure out, how to design a data model for Zika, for records, for books, conference proceedings, you name it. And we're all trying to figure out how to turn the wiki medium into something that can help us represent data models. And it's a complex problem. We don't have good interfaces for this. And I think that we should think seriously about how to create open source tools that can help us be more productive at getting there in a collaborative way. And other than that, I just want to say again, beyond the people here, there were many, many more people that I want to thank. Rachel in the first place. So big round of applause. She's been running the show behind the scenes, rescuing people, Wi-Fi networks, and so it's been amazing. And also we have a big team at Wikimedia Foundation who's been helping with logistics, with contracts, treatment of private information and whatnot. So yeah, thanks to Zoe, Pamela, Sarah, Lani, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. And to close, also our funders, who again made this possible. So the Alfred Stone Foundation, the Science Sandbox program at the Science Foundation, and the Moore Foundation made this possible. Flew here a bunch of you with travel scholarships. So thanks again to our three funders to make this event possible. And with that, I'd like to just open this up to anyone who may have comments, questions, Ferber alerts. Mike is here.
Where's dinner?
Mike. Yeah, we'll do the dinner in a minute.
I want to congratulate you on an awesome conference. It was been, I came here and I thought there will be room that I could do work. I didn't manage to do that. There wasn't any boring session, which is usually at other conferences. But I also would like to express my appreciations of the lightning talks. I really, really like that. So that this may be something that you can think, that you can use for the future. So thank you very much for this awesome conference.
Anyone else? So Rachel.
Okay, just a few final logistics things, and then we'll be out of here. So, oops, my notes just completely disappeared. Okay. So with your name badges, there's a big sign that you can't miss out front that says stop. If you just want to recycle your name badges, you can, and we'll reuse them. A lot of these get wasted every year. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you can. All of the tokens that we handed out, if anybody has any remaining, they're not for your personal poker collection. So maybe you can either turn them into the hotel or to me, or spend them at the bar if they still accept them. So for the dinner, I'm very sorry I can't pronounce the name of the restaurant. It's on the program, at the bottom of the program for today. So look there. I don't have it written here. So this is a place that serves wine from the local harvest, and apparently it's the oldest one in Vienna. It's been around since 1740. It's a long time. We have a 7:30 p.m. reservation. In order to get there on time, you should leave here around 6:50, which is actually coming up pretty soon. We're going to have just the process of participants being responsible for getting there on their own. If you can think of 70, 80 people traveling through U-Bahn in one pack, I don't think that would work so well. There's details about how to get there on the program. And also, please do not look at Google Maps to get there, because it will tell you it takes an hour and 40 minutes, when in fact the ride should take about 25 minutes, plus a little bit of walking on both sides. Yep.
So if anybody wants to use an app, there's Google. The problem is Google Maps does not work with public transportation in Vienna. Apparently, there's some feud between like the government and Google. I'm not really sure, but anyway, there's this app. It's QANDO. And it has a way of looking up the beginning and end. I know we're only here for like a little while longer, but it is really great. And so if you want any sort of electronic assistance in your hand, download that app, and I'll include a link.
So you can probably start meeting in the... So if you know the city of Vienna, can you stand up just so other people can ask you questions? I think you might be the only one. Volker is here. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like when you distribute, there's also something.
So find one of these in the lobby and go with them. Scholarship recipients can ask for their reimbursement for U-Bond tickets when you do expense reporting, which you can ask Dario about. Both directions, it will be less than €5 to get there and back for each person. And let's see, and this restaurant was locally recommended by Wikimedia Austria and is supposed to have really good food. And we have plenty of space for everyone. So if you didn't sign up, you can probably join. But actually, it would be helpful if anyone who signed up and isn't coming would raise their hand. Sweet. Sounds good. And then finally, Dario wanted me to remind you to sign up for the Wikicite Discuss mailing list. So if you haven't already done that, you probably want to. And that's it for me.
Yeah, so just real quick and going back to coordination, the Wikisite Discuss mailing list is currently the main venue that doesn't require necessarily installing specific clients or Twitter applications. We'll try and figure out where to go from there, to figure out other ways of keeping this community together. But for now, please subscribe if you're not there yet. And with that, it's a wrap. Thanks, everybody.